Hey guys, and welcome back to the Coder's Legacy channel. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how you can use the deprecated attribute inside C++. Now, this is a really cool and interesting feature. It's super simple to use, so this is not going to be a long video. All right. Now, what is this feature? What does deprecated mean? Let me just spell that out for you. Okay, deprecated. Okay, what does this mean? Now, I'm sure that many of you may have already encountered this before. You already know what it is. Basically, deprecated means to make something obsolete, to kind of mark it as, hey, don't use this anymore. This is old. This is obsolete. There is a better alternative. Or maybe this is not safe. Don't use it. It's not recommended. That's what it means to mark something as deprecated. Okay. Now, often when using libraries, we will see some kind of warning that shows up sometimes when using certain functions. It'll say that this function is deprecated. Don't use it. It's not safe. Sometimes it'll say use that function instead. It's better. Sometimes it'll say that this function is going to be removed in a future release, stuff like that. Okay, if you're familiar with libraries and if you work with a lot of libraries that are constantly updating, this kind of message is very common. Okay, so the entire point of this video is actually to show you guys how you can do this yourself. If you're building libraries, if you're making custom classes yourself, and you maybe want to mark a function as deprecated, then that's what the deprecated attribute is for. Okay, so let's discuss that. How do we do this? So we can either mark a function as deprecated, we can mark a class as deprecated, we can mark a method within a class as deprecated, we can even mark a function parameter as deprecated. Also, that's kind of useless. There's not much point in doing that. We can mark enums as deprecated as well, and probably structs as well. Okay, so let's discuss how we can mark a few of these as deprecated. So I'm gonna make a function over here and just put a simple print statement in here. Okay, this is a random function. Okay, pretty simple. Now I'm gonna run this function down here. Let's run it once normally. Okay, it says this is a random function. Great. Now I want to mark this as deprecated. Let's say that I make a new function. Okay, new function, and I want it to replace this old function. But the thing is, you might just say, why not just remove this old function? Why bother marking it as deprecated? Just go ahead and remove it. You can't just outright remove a function because there are millions of users, hundreds of millions of users who are using these functions. They're using your library, okay? Even if you have a small library and you have a few thousand people using it, that's still a lot of people. And there's a lot of legacy code, a lot of code that's already been made and it's being used. And if you suddenly remove a function just like that, then well, that's going to cause a lot of problems. A lot of code is suddenly not going to work. Okay, so you don't remove things outright. You first mark it as deprecated. Okay, and then maybe you remove it at a later date. Okay, so we have this new function here, but we're not gonna just remove our old function. We'll just mark it as deprecated, like so. Okay, and now if I attempt to call this function, observe the output. All right, hold on. What's up here? Wait, no, this is my extension is just causing some weird problems. All right, there we go. So as you can see over here, is that we have this deprecation warning. It says the void func is deprecated. Okay, it says that by default. It already tells us by default which function is deprecated. Pretty handy, right? So it even tells us where it is, which line. So yeah, that was how we do it. This is how we mark functions as deprecated. Now let's take a look at how we can further enhance this a bit. We can actually add a deprecation message. Okay, so we can say something like this function. Oh, wait, actually no. I was gonna say let's write this, but then there's no need to write that because C++ automatically writes that for us. Let's just say that use new function instead. Okay, because that's a newer version. And if I run this now, you'll see that our message is now updated. It says void func is deprecated. Use new func instead. Okay, so that's basically how we can make our messages more meaningful, because you shouldn't just tell someone that you're marking this function as deprecated. Tell them why. Tell them if there's a better alternative out there, because they need to find a replacement for that, right? But what we can commonly do is also explain why the function is deprecated. Let's say that uh, due to safety reasons, okay, it was unsecure. This is actually a reason why several functions in the main C++ library have actually been marked as deprecated. Okay, like for example, we have the gets function. This is actually marked as deprecated now, and we also have scanf. Scanf is actually deprecated. You might not know this, but it's actually marked as deprecated. We need to use scanf underscore s. Okay, it's the more secure version. All right, and similarly for gets, we use fgets now because it's the more secure version. Okay, so yeah, and these were actually marked deprecated due to safety reasons. There were problems in the way they took input, and they could actually be buffer problems, buffer overwriting, and that's why they were marked as deprecated, and newer and safer alternatives were introduced. Okay, so this is the entire concept behind deprecation. Okay, let's just take a look at one more example. Let's take a look at how to mark a class as deprecated. So let's create a class over here, okay, called my class. No need to put anything inside. This is just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to put the deprecated attribute between the class keyword and the class name. Okay, now I'm going to come down here and create our my class object. Now, one thing I want to keep completely clear, that a deprecation warning is just a warning, okay? It's not an error. If I include a print statement here, it's gonna work, okay? Because this does not, raise an error. It does not block our code. It allows it to execute, okay? It just tells the user, the entire point of a deprecation warning is to tell the user, do not use this, it's unsafe, it may cause you problems, and it may be removed in the future. Okay, that's the entire point. So if I run this code here, we get a warning, okay, that is deprecated. Again, no error. We can see that our code executed. Okay, so one more thing I'll show you, one last thing before I end the video, is that we can also mark class methods as deprecated. Okay, so if I create a function here, void func, and just put something in there, I am func. Okay, and because actually it's kind of rare to mark a whole class as deprecated. What's more common is that you would mark a few or one class method as deprecated. Okay, like so. So if I run this code now and just modify this a bit to call the func class method, okay, and I need to make this public so that we can actually call it, and now that error will go away. And if I run this code now, we can see that it says this function is deprecated. And as usual, the same rules apply. We can apply the message over here, will be removed later. Okay, cool. So this is what we can do in C++14 with the deprecation feature. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys thought you learned something new today, do let me know down in the comment section below. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel so you stay updated with all C++ content in the future. And yeah, see you guys in a later video. Bye then.